Lots of big breaking news. The National Guard has been deployed for a state of emergency in multiple states that has been declared. Also, last night we had a massive geomagnetic situation that could have potentially wiped out the grid. We're going to break down that situation and what I think is going on there. And also, there's been a state of emergency declared in Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Arkansas, Oklahoma. All right now they are dealing with this, and even parts of Iowa right now are evacuating under emergency mandatory evacuations. So you need to be prepared. These events are spreading and these weather events are getting worse and worse. So let's break down what's happening in these states first, and then I will get into what happened with this geomagnetic storm last night that could have potentially wiped out the grid in most of North America. And it was a very powerful storm, and it was a very suspicious storm and dangerous storm as well. We will get into all that. I'm going to break it down, but let's get into these states here because this is urgent for these people in this area to evacuate. So parts of Iowa right now are under emergency evacuations, and this is because the Mississippi River is flooding. And real quick, make sure you hit that stuff down there to get this video out to more people, because they could be in a region where they are in danger right now and they need to know this information. But you can see here all along the Mississippi River, they are predicting major flooding to occur all the way up into Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, all these, Illinois, Missouri, all these different states are going to be affected, and they are already having evacuations in Iowa. So you can see here, Governor Reynolds issues disaster proclamation for 10 counties in Mississippi River flooding. And here are the 10 counties here. You can see right there, I have them listed out for you. If you are in any of these counties, make sure to look up if you need to evacuate right now. They're saying that in a release, the governor said Iowans should prepare by having a flood plan to evacuate and having an emergency kit and staying up to date on the weather forecast. They said some areas of McGregor and Clayton County are already being evacuated. The city is asking people to leave the area by 8 a.m. on Tuesday. All right. As of 2:45 p.m. Monday, the river is at 22 feet at the survey point in McGregor, according to the National Weather Service. This is already at a major flood stage, and the river is supposed to crest at 24.3 feet. Every flood gauge in the state on the river, with the exception of the Keokuk in the southeastern Iowa, is at a flood stage. All right, so this is hitting Iowa hard, and all of these states right now are being affected, and multiple states have declared state of emergencies and are even deploying the National Guard to deal with the situation. And we will get into what happened with this geomagnetic storm in just a second. Could have had the potential to be very dangerous, and I will break down all the threats to that in just a second and how you can be potentially prepared for that too. But you can see here, Wisconsin has declared a state of emergency over massive flooding, and I included this picture here because just regular parking lots are being flooded. You could get trapped just going to the store with this flash flooding. You have to be very careful when you leave your home. You never know. An entire road could get washed out. An entire area could be flooded. There could be downed power lines. I've even gotten trapped in snow before. Snow situations where I have to climb to the top of the mountain and there's just a foot of snow on the ground and you just cannot get through it. All right. I've been in situations like that myself, trapped in my truck. All right. So this can happen to anyone at any time, and you should really be vigilant. And things are getting so bad in Wisconsin that the governor is even deploying the National Guard to help with the flooding. You can see here Minnesota, southeastern Minnesota is also preparing for historic flooding, and they're saying this could be a top 5 record flood for southeastern Minnesota. It says floodwaters from the Mississippi River have been creeping into yards and basements, damaging homes, while the river is expected to crest there Tuesday at 17.2 feet. The city of 2,500 will have to deal with floodwaters for several days. So all over the country is getting devastated right now, and it's even affecting our farmland and our cropland. So farmers in Arkansas, and this is happening all over the country, but Arkansas is being highlighted right now because they've had a ton of tornadoes, they've had a ton of flooding, and they keep getting hit after hit. And there's also a lot of farmland. It's prime farmland for the U.S. in Arkansas, and they are having all their fields washed out. So they are planting their entire fields, and then it gets washed out. All the fertilizer, all the seed, all the preparation, all the time forming the beds, all that work, everything gone. It's all gone. It's all destroyed, and all that money is lost too. And you can see here, quote, "We really don't have a choice. Arkansas farmer replants after floods destroy his crops." This is happening all over the U.S. and states right now. There's prime farmland up there in Iowa too, getting flooded. Wisconsin. This entire region is our farmland in the U.S., and it's being washed out and destroyed. And I've talked about this before, how these massive systems and these supercells could potentially wipe out crops even in the middle of summer. All right, crops are halfway grown and just completely wipe them out. And what does this do to our food supply and our food security? And that's why you should always be stocked up on canned foods, 20-pound bags of rice. All these things have water filters. All right, there's plenty of water, but can you drink it? All right, it's one of these things, you have to have filtration for it. And it says it has destroyed 400 acres of corn, and 15% of the farm's yields have been lost already. This is just April. It's not even May yet. And they just planted all this stuff, just fertilized it, just formed the beds, and now it is being washed out and destroyed. And this is happening all over the U.S. We'll get to this Aurora geomagnetic storm in just a second too. Very suspicious and very dangerous, so stay tuned. Also, Oklahoma is asking for federal assistance and trying to declare a federal emergency in their state because of the devastation that has happened. They've had tornadoes after tornadoes after tornado. All right, it keeps happening there. And the governor is reaching out to get federal assistance. And things are so bad in Shawnee, Oklahoma, that people can't even get their prescriptions. It destroyed a pharmacy. This last batch of tornadoes that went through last week, I reported on it in Oklahoma. It destroyed the pharmacy, and a lot of people can't even get their medications, and that could cause even more casualties and problems. All right, so it's one of these things you don't think about, the after effects of a disaster. All right, all the other things that are, the roads could be destroyed. You could not be able to get anywhere. Just like in South Florida right now, in Fort Lauderdale, the flooding is so bad that they can't even deliver gasoline. All right, this is what's happening in South Florida right now. And it's the after effects. The tornadoes were so bad that they wiped out the local pharmacies in Shawnee, and people are not able to get their medications. And that could be a life or death situation for a lot of people. Let's get into this geomagnetic storm and what happened, and how it is very dangerous and very suspicious as well what happened. We're going to break down. But you can see here some beautiful pics coming out all the way down in Kentucky. All right, so this geomagnetic storm, these auroras, were visible in Kentucky. Insane, almost never seen before. And this broke many decades-long records of ever seen anything like this far south. They were even reporting even parts of Alabama could potentially see some of the lights. You could see here in Michigan. This looks like Alaska. This is Kentucky. This is Kentucky. Something is going on. And you can see here that it was a very strong and powerful geomagnetic storm. And this is the National Weather Service putting this warning out that this storm even hit G4 conditions, which are very dangerous conditions. So you can see here the map of where this was hitting the U.S., hitting a lot of the U.S. and pretty much blanketing Canada in these auroras. But these auroras are more than just pretty lights. These are geomagnetic ionospheric storms. And a G4 storm, all right, it says right here from the National Weather Service, G4 conditions occurred at 3:45 p.m. And you can see here G4 conditions are considered severe. And says possible widespread voltage control problems and some protective systems will mistakenly trip out key assets from the grid. So it could wipe out satellites. It could wipe out the grid. A G5 is catastrophic. Is essentially like a EMP being detonated over the United States. And it says widespread voltage control problems and protective system problems can occur. Some grid systems may experience complete collapse or blackouts. Transformers may experience damage. Complete collapse or blackouts. This is the official warning on the National Weather Service's website. And this is what would happen if it was a G5. It was a G4 for a slight amount of time, and a G5 could cause complete collapse and blackouts of grid systems. And it would take a long time because these transformers that get knocked out, they require very specific and special types of metal that are highly conductive. And they are only produced in one factory in the U.S. There's only one factory. I remember looking this up 6 months ago, how there's only one factory in the entire U.S. that produces this, and they are already overwhelmed producing transformers just to be replaced at the rate that's happening right now. And if a geomagnetic storm was able to wipe out massive amounts of the grid, it would take a long time to produce these transformers and replace them. And something very suspicious is happening. So this is a very dangerous situation, these geomagnetic storms, and these are essentially auroras that are happening in the ionosphere. And we know that there are high frequency antennas that interact with the ionosphere, like HARP, an open program. This is out of Smithsonian Magazine. All right, lighting up the Arctic sky with artificial aurora. This is exactly what HARP is. It's an artificial aurora program. Look at it on Wikipedia. Look what it's called. High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. That's what HARP stands for. This is on Wikipedia. This is a real program, and it is a high-powered antenna, groups of high-powered antennas that interact with the ionosphere and electrically charge them, and can charge them to a point to create artificial auroras, all right? And this is right here. In November, high above the Alaskan sky, a pulse of high-powered emissions from the HARP array, a grid of radio transmitters that can pump high-frequency radio waves up into the atmosphere, kicked off a display of man-made aurora, more brilliant than any that had come before. The U.S. military's Naval Research Lab teamed up with the university researchers, partners from defense contractors, and others to set the upper atmosphere aglow. The scientists used the HARP transmitter's radio waves to increase the density of electrons high up in the ionosphere. HARP stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. This isn't the first time the HARP team has made an artificial aurora, but the new developments suggest they are gaining more control over the process. This is an article from 2013. 2013, this was a decade ago. So this might have been a massive test, a massive dry run to implement a major geomagnetic storm over the United States implemented by these antenna. All right, could have been a test. They could have been testing these auroras, and this could have been what we've seen. All right, auroras over Kentucky. I've never seen this in my life. I've always thought this was like something that you see out in the wilderness in Alaska, out in the middle of nowhere. If you're lucky, you'll see one. But apparently now there's auroras in Kentucky, Pikeville, Kentucky. I don't know what's going on. And these programs are out in the open, and they admit that they interact with our ionosphere, and they can create artificial aurora. All right, so maybe that's what this was, and this was a decade ago, and they're saying they're gaining more control over the process. And check out this, all right? I saw this article on Fox Weather, and this is all interconnected because cloud seeding and HARP go hand in hand. And this is an article. I just like to source everything so nobody can say this isn't real. This is from CNBC. This is December 17, 2022. They are constantly admitting this in the mainstream news. How states across the West are using cloud seeding to make it rain. All right, this is a real thing that's happening. And check out these weird clouds, all right? And they use silver iodide to seed these clouds, and silver is highly conductive, and they use silver to bounce these radio frequency waves and allow them to travel even further. They already bounce them off the ionosphere and charge the ionosphere, charge the electrons in it, and now they are able to allow them to travel even further with cloud seeding. But check out these weird clouds, and they're saying they're rare clouds, and these clouds just came into existence apparently in 2017. 2017. This is absolutely insane. I didn't know this until today. I just learned this, and you probably just did too. All right, let me know if you heard about this. This is absolutely nuts. But it says rare wave-like cloud formation spotted in the Midwest, and this was in multiple states all over, and this was just a few days ago. All right, so you can see here I accidentally got the date out of there a little bit, but it says April 19, 2023. This was all over the Midwest, Illinois, Michigan, all over. The clouds were looking like this, okay? So there was heavy cloud seeding going on. And look at this, the Asperitas cloud. And says the Asperitas is a cloud formation first popularized and proposed as a type of cloud in 2009 by Gavin Preter Piney. And it says it was added to the International Cloud Atlas as a supplementary feature in March 2017. And it is the first cloud formation added since 1951. 1951. So apparently a new type of cloud is just forming all of a sudden. And they're even making a name for it, and it was just approved in 2017. This is insane. And all these cloud formations were over the Midwest, exactly where these auroras were a few days before. All right, so there could have been heavily seeding with the silver iodide, and then once these high frequency antennas are activated, they will interact with the massive amounts of silver that is now in the atmosphere and is blanketing the sky, and you could potentially get these aurora effects like this in Kentucky. All right, I'm just speculating here because I don't have enough data to verify that's exactly what's happening, but they admit that they have high-powered antennas that can create auroras, and it makes sense that these things would be able to amplify the auroras and amplify the colors that they produce. And it's just very strange that this happened 2 or 3 days before they put this article out. Rare wave-like cloud formations, wave-like clouds. And think about it, okay? Radio waves, all these things are frequencies. They move in wave patterns, all right? Some are tighter, some are looser, but these are wave patterns. And think about it. They spray the clouds. They inject silver iodide. It's electrically charged. They activate their high-powered ionospheric antennas and send waves through them, okay? And it creates a wave-like effect through the clouds, creates a rippling effect when they are really ramping up the antennas, okay? And these antennas are everywhere. I discussed how the White House is now rolling out 6G, which is 5G, but even more high-powered frequencies, and it is now entwined with AI as well. So they will be able to train the frequencies and be able to perfect whatever projects they're working on, like these auroras. So you need to get prepared. You need to have some kind of protection for your electronics, have some kind of lead casing for your phones, for your computers that you can put them in to protect them from an electromagnetic pulse or an aurora, a geomagnetic storm. These things can happen, and they are going to get more frequent. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit it up down there if you want to support the channel and help get this video out to even more people. Thank you guys, and I hope you have a big old Blessed day.